but we know things are a little tense in Michigan right now. So we have some of Detroit's finest sons here for you today for a little Detroit drummer roundtable. And please welcome Jason Hartless, Ted Nugent's drummer, Gregg Bissonette, everybody's drummer, Chad Smith, Chili Peppers and everybody's drummer. And welcome, fellas.
Welcome. Welcome.
Great to be here.
Chad, did you remember to wear pants?
What?
Are you wearing pants?
No.
I have to remind you.
Of course. Hey.
You got to be wearing pants in the stream, man.
Oh, why? I'm not going to stand up.
We have Gregg Bissonette over there with his Dixon Casper Signature Series drums there. What's up with that, G?
Should I take the Casper the Friendly Ghost thing up? It's just good for like FaceTime lessons, you know. But I'll take the Casper off here. Show my Sabian cymbals, man.
Well, it's gonna get noisy.
Shameless plug for Sabian. Is this a Sabian?
Shameless plug for Sabian.
Is this Sabian? Is that what we're doing?
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Randy there, Jason.
I hear this.
Dude, are you, Jason? Are you in Detroit right now?
Yeah. Just outside in Sterling Heights.
In Sterling Heights,
man.
Oh my God, that's your neck of the woods, Greg. You're an East Sider, man.
Well, Chad, do you remember when we were high schoolers and stuff that we'd always go to that big Sterling Heights movie theater? There was like 100 theaters there on Van Dyke. Remember that?
Yeah.
You probably live near there, right, Jason?
I don't even know if that's still around.
You know, I have a feeling a lot of the stuff when me and Greg, because Greg and I, we left in the 80s, and I'm sure a lot has changed. And, you know, Detroit was kind of coming back a little bit. And Jason, you could probably tell us better. But and now all this shit happening, you know, it's crazy for everybody. But you know, what's the vibe in Detroit, at least from your perspective right now? Are people scared? Are people hopeful? Is it both? What's going on?
Yeah, we're pretty much on a whole lockdown here. You know, I've been in my house for the last month and a half, pretty much. You know, but you know, hopefully it seems to be getting better, and you know, everybody's very optimistic about you know, where everything's kind of going. But it got crazy for a minute, especially in the Detroit metro area. Not so much the state of Michigan, but you know, it definitely seems that good times are coming.
We're getting the okay boomer here from the boss. Let him have it, Chad.
What's that?
You look like fucking Santa Claus in that picture. You swear on these things? Is that okay? I don't know. Is it okay to say the F word? I don't really know.
It's the interwebs.
Boom, ouch, boomer. What is that? Oh, he's really losing it.
If you guys were talking about the good old days, yeah, like
you know, I was just asking the guys. You know, since Chad and I grew up in Detroit back in the day, we were asking Jason, who could probably tell you anything about the Red Wings that there is, and we're all Red Wings, Lions, Pistons, you know, everything. But the Detroit Tigers. When I was in the 4th grade, our teacher brought in a black and white TV, and we watched the 1968 Detroit Tigers with Denny McLain and Mickey Lolich win the World Series. And then in '84, Chad and I were asking Jason, there was a Tiger that hit a World Series winning home run, and then he became a Dodger, where Chad and I live now. See, I'm representing both.
Look at you. Damn, you're good.
And this guy came to a Dodger game that I was at because he was coaching for the Tigers, and he said, who are you going to root for? And I said, both teams. He said, good answer. We asked who won the World Series for LA when he hit a game-winning World Series home run. Right. Chad and I were asking Jason and Chris, but we didn't get it right out. Who was that? Anybody out there? Kirk. That's right, Timmy Gibson.
That guy, right?
Timmy from Madison Heights, Michigan got that one.
Well, and I see my old next door neighbors on Mark Sanger.
Mark.
That's amazing. Oh, there he is. Any Andover stories? No. How about the time when I was passed out in the car in the driveway and I was playing the music so loud and you came over and I was just so hungover from a WRIF midday concert with Toby Red.
Toby Red, man. Toby Red.
What? Toby Red.
Anyway, well, I want to ask Jason, Huh?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Whoa, you got graphics.
You
Look
mean
at the hair.
who's
Look
that guy?
hair.
Look at that.
Wow.
Now,
That's some
Chad,
upside
now,
down.
Chad, Chad, what you don't know is
Down, Aquanet, and then hopefully it's not raining.
now Chad, what you don't know is I'm actually the managing partner of the record label that just recently signed a deal with you guys, Toby Red, to re-release all of the old stuff.
Wait, what?
Yep.
I
Yeah.
don't
So
know about this. Wait, what?
What?
yeah.
Release?
Tell-
What?
What?
What? Wait, re-release what? In the light?
Yes, sir.
We were way ahead of our time.
Absolutely. Look at that, man. Toby Red.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's
I was talking to Tony this morning about getting everything together.
get the fuck out of here.
Yep.
Really? Can we it was on CBS or RCA or something? Is that okay? Can you?
Yeah, we worked out everything a couple months ago.
Wait, who? You and who?
Me and
You're a
Tony
business
and
man,
all the other
businessman.
logistic stuff.
You're a business man.
Great.
Yeah, so that'll be coming out at the end of this year.
Is the vinyl going to be red like the first one? Says Andy.
Yes, it is.
Andy, hey.
Thank God, Andy, that you're not a man that needs to know how to spell. It looks like
Vanille.
vanilla.
That's
Is
Canadian spelling.
vanilla?
Vanilla.
That's
Vanilla.
Canadian. That's Canadian for vinyl. Oh, this is so weird. Ah!
Look at some White Castles, man. Jason, bring them out for us.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God. Hunter House. That's my place.
Yeah.
Hey, Chad, tell us about recording the new Ozzy album, man. With Duff McKagan, right? And who else?
Yeah. God, it seems so long ago now. We did Ozzy was doing a guest on a Post Malone song on his last record, and the guy who wrote it and produced it is a good friend of mine I've been working with. His name is Andrew Watt, and he's kind of more of a pop producer, but he's a rock guy at heart. And Ozzy came over to his house, which is where the studio is, and he had a great time. And I played drums on that track. And then Ozzy leaves, and Kelly, his daughter, brought him over, and she was like almost crying. She was really emotional, and she's like, "I haven't seen my dad that happy in 6 months." And we're like,
Wow.
"Really?" And we're like, I mean, it was great. Ozzy was great. He was farting and telling joy, did not disappoint, peeing in the plant. He was, it was great, and he sang great, sounded great, and it was just like, wow, Ozzy, are you kidding me? So. But we, unbeknownst to us, he had taken a really bad fall in early January, like over a year ago, and was pretty miserable around the house for like the last 6 months, and wasn't getting better, wasn't bouncing back. And so it kind of, rejuvenated him to be making music, doing what he loves. And he didn't know who Post Malone. I don't know the fucking Postman.
That's a good Birmingham accent right there, Chad.
Birmingham. And he was just wanted to make more music, and we're like, fuck, let's write some songs for Ozzy. Shit, God, that was great. And that's what we did. And we got Duff, who we both know, and I played with recently before that time on some charity events, and he was available. It just all kind of came together, and literally from scratch, we had no music, but thinking about our favorite Ozzy/Sabbath type songs. Not trying to recreate that; that's impossible. But to really kind of what as fans we would want to hear Ozzy sing today in a modern setting, and we just wrote and recorded 12 things in 4 days.
Wow!
Like old school, like
old school.
Who's got an idea? Bam, 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 bam. How's this to make a good verse? I don't know. Does this go with this part? You guys know, yeah. And it just all kind of came together, and we used 9 of those things that we did.
Wow.
In 4 days. It was amazing. So,
wow. Well,
And
can't
then,
wait to hear that.
yeah, so it's you know, it all worked out, and you know, we got some other people to play on it, and anybody we asked wanted to do it. Elton John's on a track; he sings and plays piano on the title track, and Slash does a couple solos. Tom Morello's on it.
Man.
You know, yeah. So it was fun, and for me growing up, look, it's funny you asked.
Yeah, man. Bill
I mean,
Ward.
who's not like the hugest? I mean, Black Sabbath. Come on, it's like I was.
Come on.
Well, I noticed the vibe of the tone of the drums, man, were very like Black Sabbath, just sort of muted and very vintage sounding on that record with lots of bottom and punch.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing, and I think both of you guys know, and you too, Chris, being a drummer as well, is that I just, with heavy music, I wanted it to swing. And Bill Ward was my favorite drummers, was such a swinging, jazz-influenced drummer, like a lot of those English guys.
Yeah.
And sometimes when people play that heavy, you know, Sabbath-esque music, they think of it as, I gotta beat the crap out of it, and, you know, and I just wanted to make it swing. So
Yeah, man.
and then literally 2-3 takes of a song, and then boom, go on to the next. So that it's not, you know, when you're recording, and it's like you're just trying to get the arrangement. You're not thinking about, well, what kind of fill should I do going into the chorus? You're just like, oh, this goes 4 times. Oh, okay, you know, and so that stuff makes it that has that spontaneity in it, and it's exciting, and it's performance based. So that's old school. Yeah, the drums are just, you know, just wanted to get them sounding good and loud and proud and whatever. And Ozzy,
Where did you
Ozzy
record,
was
Chad?
banging his cane while he was listening.
Ah,
That was a good sign.
where did you track it at?
My friend Andrew has a studio at his house in Beverly Hills.
Cool.
And so everything's set up all the time. And so that's why it was literally, you know, we're in the basement of his basement studio, and it was literally, you know, let's come up with some riffs, and Duff's the writer too, and Andrew, we got some ideas, and boom, 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 and then go right to our instruments, play,
Yeah.
work it out, track it. And so we did 3 things a day, you know, in an afternoon. I mean, it was really fun. So anyway, enough of that. But that
So both Greg and Chad, you both played with Joe Satriani, and I think you both worked with Andy Johns at one point, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
Who you did your homework, didn't you, stink, you little?
So what I
Andy.
want to know what the secret is with the bottom sound. Everybody knows about the staircase and all that, but that ain't just it.
The secret is it's John Bonham.
Oh,
It's, yeah, that's the secret. I remember the first rehearsal, my brother was playing bass, and Andy's looming, as he does, right, Chad? He's looming over the kit. Well, you like your drums to sound like, mate? And I said, how about any of those great tracks you did with John Bonham? He says, we can do that. And we went into Ocean Way. We remiked the drums with a big PA. He put room mics everywhere. And then he says, we're not using a hole in your bass drum. He took off the front bass drum head. He cut a 421 cable, put it in there, dangling, soldered it, put a little piece of foam in there. And he had just recorded Van Halen too. And he said he had an idea about how Alex Van Halen, who was another one of our heroes, had, you know, gaffer tape going across his snare. And the first song we did was that song Friends. And I said, can you make it that kind of sing? He goes, I got you, man. And so we played, and I went in, and it was like that, Andy, and just gave these big hugs, and he was just the coolest guy, man. What a great, great guy, and love Andy Johns, man.
Yeah, what a legend. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the sound of Summer Song,
Oh, that's Andy right there.
fantastic. Like that. That's just like, that's amazing.
You know, Chad, you'll relate to this because you and Joe are such great friends. But Joe had the demo for Summer Song with his drum machine going, and the fill. So I played the fill, and I just played it like a. And Joe says, could you do it again without the recovery time? I said, recovery time? Joe, what are you talking about? He goes, well, my drum machine goes. I said, oh, Joe, he goes, but if drummers don't play that way, it's okay. I said, well, we don't, but I'll sure try. And Joe just said, let's just do it however you want to do it, man. Because he loved his songs, and he's one of those guys, as you know, in Chickenfoot and everything, he knows how to be in a rock band, you know. So he just said, let's do it the way the drummer would do it, you know.
Yeah. Well, he's got a studio, and he does get programs drums. I did not his solo album. It just came out, which is great, by the way. That Kenny, our buddy Kenny's on.
Kenny's on that one, yeah.
Yeah, but I did the one before, and he sent me all the songs, and they had all programmed, and and sometimes guys get demoitis and they want to hear it a certain way. You guys, and so, but he's smart enough, and he's like, it's just an idea, but then we're in the studio and cut it, and he'd be like, what does it do on the demo? I'll do my own version of it. But anyway, Andy Johns, legendary for those who don't know. He did, worked with the Rolling Stones and Exile Main Street when he was a young kid, and did, a couple, at least he did Led Zeppelin 4, but I think he worked on 3 and maybe some of Physical Graffiti too.
And a couple of great Van Halen albums too.
Did Van Halen records and Rod Stewart records. He was, his brother Glenn, who's again another legend. But Andy was real rock and roll. Glenn was kind of more English, and he was a rocker.
Yeah, Andy was the rocker.
Andy was the rocker, and he would go for it. And I don't know, Greg, if you ever saw this, but if you're tracking with them, and he's liking this, it's groove, and he'd kind of go like this.
Yeah, he'd do that little.
Yeah, he'd do the little Andy shimmy, like.
Oh, and he's always talking about forward motion. I like this take because it's got forward motion.
Right, that's it. It was his locomotion thing. It was
locomotion. I wish you could have played with Andy. He passed away a few years ago, but you'd love recording with him. You too, Chris. First time I ever played with Chris Stinky, we did a drum clinic together in Grand Rapids.
I was so nervous, man.
You're a great drummer, Stanky.
He is a good drummer.
And when I was in Grand Rapids, we used to do clinics in a giant movie theater complex there. And Greg and I were set up on the stage in this movie theater, and they're all soundproof, so we would have drum clinics from the store Rit Music and Firehouse Music. I don't know if Firehouse is still there, but I know RIT is the work to teach there. But Greg made me feel really comfortable. And when the dealer didn't show up afterwards to buy us dinner, Greg bought me dinner.
Oh, look at that guy.
That one. And we watched a Red Wings game. And we watched Hey Jason, is Harpo's and the Magic Bag in Ferndale, are those still open?
Yeah. Harpo's
not open, but still surviving.
Yeah, Harpo's is attempting to make a nice comeback. Problem is the area is just so destroyed.
That's a rough area, man.
I actually went to Harpo's for the first time in my life about 2 years ago for when my label reissued the first Seduce record, and they played, and it was interesting experience.
Oh my God, I fucking loved Seduce. Was David Black playing?
Oh yeah, it was original 3 guys.
Original 3 guys. Mark.
You remember?
Yeah, and they were a great band. The first record that you guys put that out.
Yeah, and we've got the second record coming out later this year as well.
So you guys are kind of like what's that label? Like Rhino? You're like the Rhino of Detroit or something.
Yeah, we tried.
Motor City Rhinos.
Harpo's. I tell you, the second gig I ever played when I got out of high school was with a band called Tilt, and the second gig I did was at Harpo's. I played the 24 Karat Club, and then which is a 6 Mile and Telegraph, which I'm sure is no longer there. It can't be. And Harpo's was big, right? That's a real venue. And I was scared shitless. And we played with the almighty Strut.
Yeah, Strut.
With Gunnar Ross as the drummer, had the biggest fucking drum set I'd ever seen at that point. Somehow, a local band, he was endorsed by Ludwig. And this is 1980. And he had the biggest drums I'd ever seen. And
Wow.
24-inch kicks for floor. I mean, they sounded terrible.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It was
Didn't
all
matter. Didn't matter.
break sticks with his head and hit bullets on his cymbal stand. I mean, it was all show.
Yeah.
And Harpo's and I ended up befriending one of the waitresses.
I see you did. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Later on, I was 18, and this was like the greatest thing ever. And we were having an adult hug at the end of the night in the dressing room, and the lights go out, and I'm like, let's get out of here. And she's like, well, they let the dogs out in here, and so you're gonna have to make a run for it in the back door. They had 2 like killer German Shepherds. I'm putting my clothes on. And then you get to the parking lot, you just don't want to get shot. Or like 3 a.m. at 94 in Chalmers.
94 and do you remember a band called Adrenaline? They used to play at Harpo. Brian Pastoria and the Rodeo, me and Michael Rock. They were DC Drive.
Yes, those guys were great.
Love those guys, man.
Yeah, those guys were. Was Brian on there? I'm not even looking. Oh, cool.
George, Chad, my question here for you about switching gears a little bit. Bobby wants to ask Chad about, he was at the Iridium in New York City when you and Ginger Baker came to town with his group in support of the Mayor of Mr. Baker. Could you talk about your experience with Ginger? I believe you did an interview with him around that time.
I did. Well, I don't know if I would call it. It was like I was interviewed for that film, and I became friends with the director. And I was living in New York at the time, and Ginger, we didn't even think that he would even be able to play. And all of a sudden, my friend Jay Bolger, who was the director, he's like, Ginger's coming to town with a band. I'm like, he's playing? He's like, yeah, I guess so. And I'm like, holy shit, I got to see this. And at the time, I was doing this little kind of podcast / TV thing. I didn't know what I was doing, but anyway, I was interviewing some people, and I was like, maybe I can talk to Ginger. And he's like, yeah, I'll see if he'll do it. And so we went to see him at the Iridium, and it's a small club in New York in Times Square. And I'm sitting in the audience, and ladies and gentlemen, Ginger Baker, and he comes out, and there's like literally 2 guys holding him by both of his arms. He's like barely walking. And I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. Like, holy shit. I'm like, oh. And they kind of sit him on the drums. And all of a sudden, when he gets on the drums, it's like the hi-hat starts going, chick, 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 chick. And he like turned into this like rock Ginger Baker doing his thing, not like crazy, but like good. I was really expecting him to be like, oh man, this is fucking gonna be a car crash. And he was very good. And I was like, wow, it's one of those things where you see people and they just can't believe that they're gonna, but when they get on stage, they transform and it works. And it's so cool. And I got to interview him afterwards the next day, and he just doesn't want to talk to anybody. He was a crusty curmudgeon. If anybody saw that film, it's exactly how he was. He had to have his Barker Lounge with his sunglasses, nonstop chain smoking. And I maybe got a half hour out of him, and he didn't know who I was, or we had done a clinic together in London. He didn't remember any of it, where he like fell over the drums, and it was just like, it was a nightmare. And Jay was with me laughing the whole time. I was so uncomfortable. It was really difficult. But it's Ginger Baker.
It's Ginger Baker, man.
Ginger Baker, you can't, the guy,
I believe
personally, but as a drummer, he changed everything. So
I'll never forget getting to know him in the 80s and bringing him. He was at Sound City recording with his band, and I was doing an album, and my brother was producing it, and we had Steve Lukather playing a solo. And so we're listening back, and I said, Ginger, I'd gotten to know him. I was at his birthday party with Myron Grombacher and Mark Cranny. We all became friends. But, with Ginger, it's like you never really know. You don't want to say the wrong thing. I bring him over. Hey, we're doing a thing. Check it out. And it was a double bass, kind of a hot for teachery kind of song. And he pokes his head in the door and he goes, I don't like metal. Cream was not a rock band. We were a blues band. I don't like metal. And he just walked back to his room.
Yeah. If you say, I mean, you see it in the movie, he just like dismisses Bonham, dismisses Keith Moon, if you weren't Joe Jones or Elvin Jones or Max Rose, then you were, he would, Joe Bonham couldn't swing a bag of shit, but he didn't mince words, man. He did, but I mean, it was difficult to talk to him, to say the least. But anyway, it was a real honor. But can I ask Jason, when did you start playing with Terrible Ted?
2016, I believe. So this year's going 5th year with him, and just can't ask for a better guy to play with. Phenomenal.
So at Pine Knob, man, DTE, you had your Red Wings jersey on, the American flag back there. You were just wailing, man.
Yeah, I always try to come out with a Red Wings jersey at DTE shows at the Encore and stuff like that. But Chad, Ted's talked many times about you sat in with them years ago and played Motor City Madhouse, and he's just like, that was the best that song's ever been played.
Oh, please. I mean, I know Ted a little bit through our mutual friend Sammy Hagar. And so when I started playing with those guys, I became a little more friendly. We were down in Cabo, and we did something in Houston once for the Super Bowl. And I did sit in with them once. We were playing in like Spain, and we're in the same hotel. And Ted. But it's just like, I mean, Gregg knows, growing up in the 70s and mid-70s in Detroit, long before you were a thought in your dad's loins, that it was Ted Nugent, Bob Seger all over the radio 24/7. You couldn't get away from. And it was great. Those first three to me, those first 3 Ted Nugent records are classics and classics. But he gets good drummers. So, Tommy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because he's always had a thing for Detroit drummers. I mean, Johnny B and it's just when I got
Johnny B play with Nugent? No.
Yeah, he did the record before I joined the band. He played on most of it.
No shit.
With the blue dress, man.
Mm-hmm.
Did you play with Mitch Ryder too, Jason?
Yep. Yeah, I've done a few gigs with Mitch over the years, and it's crazy because he always talks about how Detroit drummers just have this sound that no one can replicate, and it's actually funny because Tommy Clifettos was my drum teacher for a time when he was drumming for Ted in the early 2000s.
Look at that.
So it's a crazy full circle, and but to be with a Detroit legend like Ted, and he's playing better than freaking ever right now. So,
don't you study with George Dunn too back in Detroit?
Yeah, George Dunn, was my teacher for many years. He was my drummer.
What? Didn't he have a shop?
He taught out at Huber and Breeze for years.
Okay. Oh my God. Huber and Breeze. I stole a lot of shit from that place.
Oh man. Bill Cairo said to say hi to you. It was his birthday yesterday.
I still owe him for some cymbals too.
The drum house. How about Tony Pia? Did you guys know Tony Pia? Played with the Doobie Brothers and Keith Emerson, and he took my place with David Lee Roth years ago. Do you know Tony? He's from Cousino High, like 13 and Van Dyke or something. Where was that? 13 and Groesbeck.
I don't know.
Anyway.
There is something in the water in Detroit.
That was Flint.
I believe there's something about it for sure, without a doubt. Our drummers, musicians, anything, whatever. I'm sure that Gregg will agree with me, and Jason, you're lucky too but you're so young. But I'm so glad that I had those formative years growing up in Detroit with the schools, where the music was in the schools, and then right out of high school, all those clubs, and I played for 8 years nonstop. Those are my 10,000 hours kind of thing. And I was really fortunate to have that. And you know, it's Detroit, man. You know, they work hard and they play hard.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And it was if you were good, they would let you know. And if you weren't, they let you know that too.
Absolutely.
And bullshit. And that I was really, you know, lucky to have that. And I'm sure, you know, it's still the same. I don't know if the scene is that vibrant anymore, and we're all professionals now. We got real gigs, but you know, to go play 3 sets a night, 6 nights a week, nothing. I think.
I remember playing a couple of years ago at the Fox with Ringo, and after sound check, I said, Ringo, when I was 7, my dad got tickets, and I saw my brother and I saw you at Olympia Hockey Arena, number 9, Gordie Howe. He says, is that near here? Let's go. I said, it's all torn down now. It's in America, we tend to tear down big, you know, socially, historically big buildings. He said, oh, that's so cool, man. He said, you grew up right near here. He said, there's so much great music that comes out of Detroit. I remember Cobo, we graduated, Warren Mott graduated at Cobo.
Really?
And the first David Lee Roth gig of Eat 'em and Smile tour in Detroit, we played Cobo. And I said, this is where our high school graduated, Dave. He's like, all right. You know, it was like vibe, man.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
You're doing good work promoting music education and all that. Did you ever think the guy wearing the sock would be sent to Washington to lobby Congress?
No, I didn't think I'd be wearing a sock either. So